Hello, and we're back with the main man. Who are your lead judges? How are you, mate?
Yeah, I'm all good, thank you, Kevin. All good. Can't complain.
Right. Look, let's get straight into it because we've got quite a
Yep.
few bits to cover and there's some detail we want to get into. So, Lee, what's your thoughts on the Terry Neal Donnell era? Obviously, that was like Terry Neal was 76 to 83, and then Donnell took the reins from 83 to 86. But obviously, Donnell was Terry Neal's number two. So, the
Yeah.
that longevity and that vein of good coaching was there. What's your thoughts on that era? Because I know you went to a lot of the games back then.
Yeah, yeah. Mixed, I think you'd have to say, Kev. It was really, when I first started going to the Arsenal and getting into it, we was in FA Cup finals and doing really well with the Liam Brady, Frank Stapleton era, and we got to those 3 cup finals. And then it changed, Kev. I think it really did change from 80 when Frank Stapleton and Liam Brady left. It changed. It was very, very tough. I remember. I don't know if you can remember the game Walsall in the League Cup when we was at home, lost 2-1. I think in front of about 11,000 fans on a Tuesday night.
I didn't go to that
Awful
game, but
game.
I remember listening to it on the radio vividly.
Yeah, absolute awful game, And then I believe it was West Brom. I think that we lost at home again, and I think that was I think that was when Terry Neal
Nailing his
was.
coffin.
Yeah, it was a noun. And in those days, you couldn't weren't on social media or on fan cams going around and shout whatever you want to do. You go round to where the marble halls and the dressing rooms were there, and start singing. Sack the manager, we want him out, and there used to be big crowds outside, shouting at the ball to sack him, which was a shame, really. But that's how it was. I think that he probably had to go. Because I think if I really remember rightly, Charlie Nicholas had come in the summer and there was a big expectations and it just didn't happen. It just, the team was struggling. I think Paul Davis was playing as well then, who become fantastic players as you well know, but he was struggling as well at that time.
Getting a lot of stick as well, wasn't he, Pops? Pops was
Yeah.
getting some stick. He was getting some stick around that time and after.
Yeah, he was probably 18, 19 at the time. You probably know a little bit better. Baby, and he was suffering. He was suffering. We had the season before that. I think we got to the semi-final of the FA Cup against Man United. Very unlucky to lose to them. Stuart Robson coming through then, who was a really good player for the Arsenal. And of course, we had our first sort of foreign player, Vladimir Petrovic. Remember?
Yeah, I remember Petrovic, yeah.
Yeah, and cultured sort of a player, but it just didn't fit into the Arsenal style.
Probably ahead of his time, wasn't he?
Yeah. Probably ahead of his time. But that was a sort of, we'd missed out, not having Liam Brady, and he come along and everybody sort of jumps onto that bandwagon of him, but he didn't last too long, and I've just felt it was just more and more things going wrong. And obviously then when Charlie Nicholas come, that gave us a big lift, but it weren't happening. And then Donnell coming, and to be honest, Kev, I thought Donnell done okay. We become a really entertaining. What he done was he signed Paul Mariner and bit of experience up front. So we had him and Tony Woodcock up front and Charlie Nicholas just playing behind. And if you think about it, like in the number sort of 10 role, it was again, I think Donnell being a bit more advanced in his years, you know what I mean? Like it would be more suited nowadays, that sort of stuff. So he was a brilliant coach for Arsenal, and we started going well that season. I remember we was up the top for a little while playing some good stuff. And but we just didn't have the right ingredients. It wasn't, the right style in there. I remember someone mentioned the other day, Peter Nicholas was playing. Do you remember him, the Welsh a tough, battling player? We had some decent players.
Yeah, because he was at Palace with Budgie, wasn't he? He was
I think that's what I was. I think.
And then
That's it. I think Budgie was the one that mentioned it. Yeah, when in his show, and he was there. We had Chris White coming through. A lovely guy, Chris, and coming through, but it just didn't. Kenny Sampson was at the club then, probably the best left back in England. Well, if not Europe, but we just I remember John Hollins. Do you remember John Hollins
Yeah, John
playing?
Holland. Yeah, of course.
About his 40s, but it just
He done a
just
job.
wasn't the right. He'd done a job, but it was just we was like without being bad about it, was like we was a cup team more than anything. We was never
Yeah.
really looking like challenging for a title, never.
Yeah. We couldn't sustain.
And
I thought we couldn't sustain the performances in the Premier League.
yeah, in the league at the time, we just couldn't we couldn't do it. But there was I actually at that moment in time under Donnell was enjoying the games. Mainly because Charlie Nicholas was playing a bit better. He was performing fairly well, and I did like Paul Mariner. I thought probably got him at the end, probably 2 years too late into his career, but he'd done a decent job for us and it was good football. But unfortunately for Don and that it wasn't what Arsenal required. It needed to. Tottenham at the time were going well, which doesn't help. They had their little best spell.
Some exciting players they had, didn't they?
Yeah, they did. You have to admit that, and we needed to turn it around, and we needed something different to come in.
So Lee, so we're going to the second point here. Were you happy when Arsenal appointed George Graham from Millwall? Because you know what, even I remember, and I'll admit it, I was like, wow, they've gone for George Graham. I didn't know much. I knew George played for Arsenal, obviously. But I didn't know, I hadn't really been following how Millwall had been doing or anything like that. And I'm a South London boy. But it was, Millwall were they were doing okay, but they weren't ripping any trees up. Do you know what I mean?
No, exactly. I remember, I think that at the time, Terry Venables was being mentioned and, a couple of other top managers at the time. And then all of a sudden, George Graham was mentioned because of his Arsenal connections, I felt like, but playing for the team. And as you say, like Millwall, you know what I mean? No, we can come on, we can get someone better than this guy, you know what I mean? And I'll be honest, I was very much like that. And as you well know, it took me a couple of years to warm to for George Graham.
It didn't. No, it didn't, Lee. It didn't take you a couple of years. It took you one season.
One season. Right.
Because at the end of that season, remember, we had the trilogy against Spurs.
Yeah. Well, I look back at it. I know what you're saying, but he did, he got rid of my mate Charlie, you know what I mean? So he needed to come in and do something really good. And I remember going to that game at QPR, which was his last game of the season, last game forever for Arsenal, and we lost it. And, Kevin, I remember that game. It was poor as anything, like, and I'll love and behold the scapegoat. The player to be left out was Charlie Nicholas. So I had the hump with George, you know what I mean? But he won me round. Let's put it that way, like. He won me round. But yeah, he come in, and I think that, the one, and I remember this, sincerely, with that season, is that as soon as he come in, from your story of being at the club at the time, but from a fan's point of view, straight away you see something was going to happen, like an improvement from the first game. I don't remember the first game, Man United at home, which was a big game at the time. We won 1-0, and straight away you could see that that something was going to happen. There was this. I don't know, like, I can't explain it, but you could see, all of a sudden that season was a fantastic season, by the way. We was like going for the title after Christmas. I think because the boys were a little bit too young, we probably didn't do it. But there was like a difference in the scene with, Viv Anderson was playing really, really well. Your mate Viv, like, and
yeah,
then,
my mate, yeah.
And then you had Steve Williams in there, some very, very experienced players. Paul Davis now, which is fantastic for him and shows you what sort of player that he was, had turned it around. He was now being, he was
established
in the team.
Then by then,
he was established, playing really well. Not the boo boy that he was when he first came to the club, Kev. You know what I mean? Like, if anything went wrong, it was Paul Davis's fault, which was very, very harsh. But I think because of that, he become mentally stronger and become a real a real player for us, and it was a good time to start supporting them. Down the road was still a decent side, by the way. You
Yeah,
know,
they were good.
so,
They were good. They were good. Listen, we're not gonna take anything. This is about us, but we got to give props where it's due. They were
yeah,
exciting. They were exciting. They had some really, really good players, and they were looking to take our head off, weren't they? Let's be
yeah.
honest. Because
Well, yeah,
in that semi, the only time we led was right at the end.
right at the end, and you know we'd found the good thing about going through that sort of era though. Charlie Nicholas, hardly scored against it, but he always scored against Spurs. When we played Spurs, we'd done fairly well against them, even when they was a little bit better than us. So, but you know, they was starting to make moves, Kev. You know what I mean? And, and George come in and thankfully put a stop to that.
And Lee, many of the experienced players left Arsenal, as you mentioned, Charlie Nicholas. Don't forget, Viv Anderson was sold. Kenny Sansom was discarded. Really, he'd done a naughty on George. And if you remember rightly, the first signing was Perry Groves, and then he brought Nigel Winterburn in, and Nigel Winterburn was playing right back.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah,
at the time, and the likes of Tony Woodcock and all them, George Graham just swept the board with them, got them out. He got them out. How did you feel about that, Lee? Because there was a lot of experience being discarded.
Yeah. Well, I wasn't happy, Kev. As I said, I wasn't happy. I always felt that even when George Graham was there, he was looking to get Charlie Nicholas out, and I felt that there was still. I was looking forward to, because Alan Smith signed during that season, but was loaned back to Ipswich and then was coming next. So I thought, like Alan Smith coming, Charlie Nicholas up front was going to be a good partnership. And I don't know if you remember what he done that following season was that he put Perry Groves in there. And I love Perry. We've met him a few times. He was a great guy and all that. But I resented him because he ain't the replacement for Charlie.
You see, that's the thing. It's the mentality, isn't it? Colchester, he can't be playing for Arsenal.
Yeah. And I said, not only that, he's replacing my idol. You know what I mean? And not only that, he's got ginger hair, like, you know what I mean? He's not got this long wavy hair like Charlie Nicholas had. And it was lots of, it was like that, and but what he done, I think with Viv Anderson, I don't think he really wanted Viv to go, but Man United had come in for him, and offered him a little proper money, and he decided to go, which was disappointing because he was a fantastic right back for us at the time. Steve Williams went, I think, fell out with George, and you could see that there was a pattern of all these not superstar players, but bigger names that were falling out with George, you know what I mean? And there was the disciplinarian coming in. I think that from an outside view, we needed that as well. I felt that maybe, I don't know, I'm not saying that they was, but from the outside looking in, it may be like under the Don and Howe era that the experienced boys were sort of running the show a little bit like. And I think George come in and said, right, I'm not having that. I'm going to bring in youngsters that are going to throw it through. And let's face it, that he had some fantastic youngsters coming through. And I think George, I'm going to say this now, was a little bit lucky at times, because I remember when he got rid of Charlie Nicholas the following season. Now he's trying to get Tony Cottee, Kerry Dixon was being mentioned to come into the Arsenal. And you're thinking, well, like, we didn't get none of these guys. And then all of a sudden, this long, skinny, curly-haired fella called Paul Merson come into the team. Yeah. And him and Alan Smith, that it
hit
exploded
it off, didn't they? Yeah, they hit it off.
Hit it off. And it was a tremendous partnership for a while. I remember, because obviously Tony Cottee went up to Everton. Yeah. He chose Everton over Arsenal. And after a while, we was all being a little bit disappointed that we didn't get somebody like that. I think Frank McAvenny was mentioned as well as another. And we we keep missing out on all these players. But in the end, I think it was more being forced to play Paul probably a little bit earlier than what he was. But he come in and was fantastic. And the rest is history on that side of it. So. But
Lee, if you add in what he done with the homegrown players, because you know what, you mentioned Merce there, but someone who kind of goes unnoticed, but he had an unbelievable couple of seasons, was Martin Hayes.
Do you know
Martin
what?
Hayes scored 20-something goals one season.
Yes, in the '87 season when we won the Little Woods Cup,
Little Woods Cup.
24 goals. And as you remember, like, unfair again, you know what I mean? Arsenal fans are terrible at times. Whoops-a-daisy Martin Hazy, they used to call him, didn't they? You know what I mean? Very harsh, very harsh. And do you know what? It was in a quiz question the other day we was doing. How many goals he got in the '89 season? Do you know the answer to that? How many goals he scored in the '89?
No, I don't, actually. I don't.
I didn't know, and I was very surprised. One. And that was the goal against Middlesbrough. Do you remember when it went up?
We was
the winner when we were struggling.
Yeah,
we needed
that was the winner.
Points out. Yeah, and it was a bubbly old pitch and bumpy old pitch, and he just got on the and scored that goal. If he hadn't scored that, if he doesn't score that goal, we can't win at Anfield. So that was very, very important. But he went to that season in '87. He was like, scoring goals for fun, and very, very underrated for a year or so. And it's funny that there are a lot of Arsenal players that are like that. You know, going back to that side, Brian Marwood had a fantastic
season. Brilliant season.
Brilliant season. You know, and I still say this now: if he'd have stayed fit in that '89 season, we wouldn't have needed to go to Anfield because we'd have won it by then.
Yeah, 100%.
We just lost our shape a little bit when he went out the side and our fluency. But unbelievable player, you know. But as you say, George had this, like Tony Adams, you know, Martin Keown obviously left, but he brought him back at a later date. Mickey Thomas, who was playing right back for a season, put him into midfield. Rocky was like this. We're going back to the '86, '87 season, '88, round about that. Oh my God, he was outstanding. He was an outstanding player, Kev. You know what I mean? That everybody loved. You could associate with him because he was like Arsenal through and through. But what I liked about him is that he had the skill of a Brazilian, but the work rate of a Brian Talbot or somebody like that in their day, you know. So
and Lee, he could tackle.
He could tackle.
He could run. He could tackle. He could shoot. He had the skills. You know, what more could you wish for? And the great thing was, Lee, he was homegrown. This is, you know, that vein of coaching. A lot has to go to, you know, the backroom staff as well, because they prepared these guys, Terry Burton and Pat Rice and all these guys, helped these guys get to a point where they were ready for the first team so young.
Yeah.
Once they started breaking through, you know, there was no stopping them.
Well, I think at that era, you know, they go on about Alex Ferguson's team and of '92, and rightly so. But we had it with Arsenal when it wasn't so much Sky wasn't about public eye. But we had that, you know, Martin Keown, I think, made his debut at 17. Tony Adams was definitely 17. I think David Rocastle was 17. You know, Niall Quinn was there as well. People forget he'd done a fantastic job for us up front. You know, I think made his debut about 18. Paul Merson, 18. Paul Davis, I know, was a little bit further. Was about 18, 17, 18. You know, incredible to be playing for the Arsenal and not only playing but contributing to a successful season. 18 and 19.
And then there was my lot. You know, I made my debut at 18.
Exactly.
Dave Villiers came through. Do you know what I mean? Then you had the likes of Paul Dickoff and Andy Cole and all those guys. I mean, it was Neil Heaney. It was a conveyor belt. They were just trying to push you through, but there's only so many spots. So when you count up all those players who have come through the ranks, save the club a fortune, Lee.
Without a doubt, and you always, you know, in the program, you'd have like a spot on the youth players, and you know, we all knew about what you was doing before you actually got into the first team. There would be like, oh, Campbell scored again. Oh, this is the next one coming through. Yeah. So they built it up with a nice little way of doing it, you know what I mean? To say like all these youngsters were coming through. This is the one little profile, and you'd look through the program and see these guys coming through, and then like when they did this, you know, we knew that you'd scored 60 goals for the
youth and reserves
team that season when you was coming in. So you know, and I think that the expectation, right, this is the new one, and it was Arsenal done it really well, and we've always done that, bring players through, you know, and that's always been a good thing. And I think with George, what he'd done was, which you have to compliment him for, is that it wasn't like, right, I'm not going to go and look at Stoke for Steve Bold, or I'm not going to go, I'm going to...
Well, that was going to be my next question, Lee. Great. Because it's still tied in with this one. Because we can relate it to now. We're going to have to relate it to now, because
very much so.
we don't have the money to go splashing cash. Lee Dixon, Steve Bold, Perry Groves, you know, Nigel Winterburn. How many? If Mikel Arteta went and bought some players that weren't really known, what do you reckon would happen with the Arsenal fan base?
Well, unbelievable, like, you know, like this is unbelievable. Our little story about Nigel Winterburn, and you know, we was out. We had a little holiday in Torremolinos just before, and unbelievably, the Wimbledon team was in the coach, and they was preparing for the game against Tottenham in the I think it was the quarterfinals of the FA Cup, and like they said, you know, to me dad and that, and me, you want to come down and watch training and everything like that. So we was watching them train every day, you know, and John Fashion, who turned around and said, I'd never heard of Nigel Winterburn at this stage. You know, this was about 87. I think this was the 87, because Spurs went on and got to the cup final that year and lost to Coventry, unlucky. But anyway, that's another story. And he turned around and said, this is Nigel Winterburn. He's going to be the best left back in England, like, you know. But I didn't know who he was, and then love and behold, about 6 months later, he started, oh, great, you know what I mean? Like,
I knew about him. Did you claim it?
Yeah, I claimed it. I said he's going to be the best left back we've ever seen. So, and there he was playing right back at the stage. But so that was him. But no one had heard. I'd never heard of Lee Dixon and Steve Bold. I'm going to be really honest, and Perry Groves. You know what I mean? Like, you know, you think, you know, from Colchester, and you think to yourself, oh, he's going to get in the side, and you know, I've spoken to Perry. I mean, he does himself a disservice when he talks about, you know, very underrated. Done a great job for the Arsenal. Great job.
I thought Perry was the best bit of business that George Graham ever done. When you consider the price he cost and the way he performed at Arsenal, I thought he was, you know, look, he's not fancied like a lot of the other players. But you know what? He always filled in, and he always gave his lot. Scored some really important goals as well, Lee. I tell you.
Well, exactly. And the other thing with that is you're never going to win the league with 11 players, and you need squad players. And he was the perfect sort of squad player. He only had 2 subs those days, so it'd be 1 forward, 1 defender. But he could play wide or up front. I thought he, you know, does himself a disservice. And you know, George Graham done another great bit of business by bringing in Kevin Richardson, I think for 250 grand from Watford. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Cheap money.
So, as good as a coach he was, and as good as a disciplinary, he had an eye for a player that probably other clubs or other teams didn't fancy, Kev. You know what I mean? Like, you know, I think Kevin Richardson was in and around that Everton team that was
he was
really,
in
really
around
good.
the good times at Everton.
Yeah, good times at Everton, and then he went to Watford, and you're thinking, what we want to sign someone from Watford for, like, but. You know, I mean, this is to mean say we was white. I'm not going to lie. You know, that's what it was like. But he come in, you know, and everybody says now, absolutely brilliant. You know, like,
he was, you know, on the training pitch as well. The same way he played on the pitch is the same way he trained on the training pitch. He was always committed, always about doing the right things. Again, a winner. But if you notice, Lee, there was a pattern of what George Graham was bringing in.
Yeah.
He weren't just bringing in players who had a little bit of talent. He brought in players who wanted to win.
Yeah.
Who were hungry. Do you know what I mean? That's what he knew we needed to tie in with everybody else, because within the club there was that will to win anyway. But any player that came in had to have that will and wanted to learn and wanted to improve and wanted to win things. I think that if we turn it around to now, that's what we need now. Forget the big names. We need winners.
Exactly, and I think if you look at it from that point of view, like we had David O'Leary and Tony Adams as our two central defenders at that time, that played in the '87 Cup final and were doing a decent job. But he then brought in Steve Bold, and David O'Leary never gets the credit he deserves. We can never complain. Still come in and done what he had to do and done a job. And all of a sudden now we've got 3 top class central defenders, and Steve Bold, what a defender he was, like, could defend. What I say was, does exactly what a centre half wanted to do, and you think to yourself, where's he got him from? Why ain't no one else gone for these players, you know what I mean? And so you have to think it was very canny what he was doing. Very canny what he was doing.
George was smart. He knew these guys because Millwall probably played against them, and he thought, they're good.
Yeah.
I think Boldy was playing right back at Stoke. Look at the size of Boldy right back. So he's seen something at some stage. Obviously, Lee was normally the right back, but Boldy went out there and done a job. So he was a bit versatile, and probably helped in George Graham's thinking. If I need to play 3 at the back, I know Boldy's comfortable enough on the ball that we could give him the ball in that position, and he can do the business. So that's fantastic. But Lee, you touched on that. We touched on the North London Derby trilogy.
Yeah.
What's your experiences of the 3 games, and did you go to all 3 games?
Right, this is. I didn't go to the first one, and the reason I didn't go when we lost 1-0 at home, because I had a semi-final for my Sunday team at the time, so I didn't go. I couldn't get to that game. I remember going round the managers my dad ran the team, but the assistant manager was a Spurs fan, and we were always going round there. So about 3 in those days, 3 Arsenal fans, all the rest Spurs, and we lost 1-0. And if I remember rightly, it was the following Sunday was the second leg.
Was the second leg, yeah.
At White Hart Lane. And so I got my ticket for that. And so we're 1-0 down. But I always felt that we had a shot. But this, people have to listen to this, remember that Spurs now were a better side than us at the time. They was going great guns. They had Clive Allen, who scored, I think, 49 goals that season.
49 goals, mate. He was ridiculous.
Yeah, they had some Chris Waddle was playing, Glenn Oddle. They had some, top players, and it was going to be a tough arse for us. And but he went there, and I don't know if you remember it. It absolutely hammered.
Tipped it down.
I
was there. Tipped it down.
And it wasn't just fire; it was that rain that would soak you in 5 minutes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was horrendous, and we was 1-0 down. So basically 2-0 down over the 2 legs, and we come back. Viv Anderson scored the first goal.
That's right.
I remember right, and Niall Quinn got the equaliser, covered in mud. I remember it, and nowadays it would have been over. I know they've stopped doing it again, but there weren't no away goal rule, so we had to go to extra time. And I thought we played really well in that game. I thought that we played as well as we ever done in that game. And then obviously that was it. It was 2-2. And
flip of a coin, Lee. We were hoping that we get them back to Highbury. That's all you could ask for.
Yeah, that was all you could hope for. I remember coming home. Now you imagine it like you're absolute drown rat, but getting out of Spurs from this day to then wasn't never easy, especially for us. But and someone saying, I remember getting on the station at White Hart Lane because we're going back into Cheshunt.
Yeah.
Someone like Spurs fan said, we've gotten back at home. That's it. You know what I mean? Like, so, Christ.
God.
I had to pretend that we was happy with it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that was that. So we got our tickets for the Wednesday night game, and for me, that was the best game ever. It was absolutely electric atmosphere going down there. And I have to say this, I always felt, I don't know if you enjoyed more going to White Hart Lane than any other ground. It was just something spectacular about going down to Spurs. It's great atmosphere. It still is to this day, you know what I mean? Going to Spurs.
It's the enemy territory, isn't it? You want to win there, you want to celebrate there.
And as much as you wanted to get them back at Highbury, knowing that we won, there's no better, that was to win at White Hart Lane is so much more special, I think, than winning at Highbury or even at the Emirates now. I do believe that, and it was just, the atmosphere that night was absolutely electric.
It was electric.
But I think, and I'll be honest, we didn't play well. I didn't think we played as well as what we did in the first game.
The second game.
The second game.
The first game at White Hart Lane.
First at White Hart Lane. I thought we played really, really well that day and deserved. If we'd have won that 3-1, Kev, I don't think no one would have complained.
No one would have complained, yeah.
But it was a different game, different. It was a dry evening and all that. I didn't think we played that well. They go 1-0 up. I don't think Clive Allen again. Not unmarked in the box, you know what I mean? But there you go. That was that. And then Charlie Nicholas gets carried off.
That's right.
And on comes Ian Allenson. And, love Ian, but you're thinking, well, he ain't going to score for us, you know what I mean? Like, he's not really a great goal scorer, is he? Do you know what I mean? Like, and I think, I can't remember, it was about 8 minutes ago, but I remember just standing in the Park Lane and all the whole of Tottenham was singing, "We're going to Wembley, we're going to Wembley, you're not." It was deafening. And all you could do was just stand there and take it. You know what I mean? Like, just stand there and take it. You just couldn't do nothing else about it. And then the madness.
Paul Davies plays the ball over the top for Alisson, doesn't he?
Yeah. And to this day, I don't think he hit it properly. You know what I mean? I think it caught out Ray Clements. And
because it went through Goffey's legs. It went through Goffey's legs. But they're the ones that go in, Lee. When you strike them too clean, Clements will probably save it. But when you give it a little scuff in and it goes through the legs, the keeper, he was dead. Poor Ray, he was dead, mate.
He was gone. He was gone, like, you know what I mean? And the momentum just changed. It just changed, you know what I mean? Big time, you're thinking, well, it's going to go extra time there, and, you're thinking it is. But the atmosphere had changed where they'd been a little bit arrogant, as they always are, and now the fans were on top and all that, like. And then the moment that to this day, it brings a smile to my face now.
Me too. I'm buzzing about it.
And if you look back on it, it's a little bit of a deflection, which helps it go into the path of rocking.
Deflection. Listen, it all worked in our favour.
And I obviously I didn't experience the '89 being at Anfield, but to this day, from that minute to when the game finished, that's the best ever been. Cup finals have been fantastic, and I've had some great cup finals. But when that ball went in the back of the net, just look, everybody just went mad. Everybody gets piled forward, like, it was with me mates. You lost your mates because one was gone one way, one's gone the other.
Surfing, everyone's surfing, aren't they? Surfing.
Absolutely going mad, and of course, then the song comes, doesn't it? Like, we're going to Wembley, you're not, and we're absolutely going mad. You know what I mean? And giving it, because he had the shelf there.
That's right, the shelf. Yeah.
And it was an absolute dream, like, and then. It wasn't really no time for it to go. It done, like, you know what I mean. It done, and obviously for you was on the pitch and all that. But it was just there. There was a little bit. I remember David scoring that goal, and he was calming everybody down.
Of course, unbelievable. That's the mark of the man. The mark of the man was, it was. No, it's not going to rub it. Have you noticed? Arsenal, the players celebrated, but they weren't going over the top. They were making hands. They were making sure, how you doing, all the best and all that kind of thing. Of course, they're happy, but it was no over-the-top celebration.
No, there wasn't. Classy Arsenal, Kev. Classy Arsenal.
But do you know what I love, Lee? And from time to time over this lockdown stuff, I've got to admit, I've put it on. I love it because all the Arsenal are all behind the goal.
Yeah. All behind the goal.
Just like the old days, back in the days, the old days. And when Allenson scores, and you just see the crowd go mad. And then Rocky scores. That is it. Being there, it just brings back all the memories, Lee.
Yeah.
It does bring back all that memories.
you didn't want to leave the ground, you know, like all the players like yourself and all that are on the pitch and, you know, going mad. And of course, the greatest thing then is the shelf is empty then, you know what I mean? They've had enough, you know what I mean? And gone. And it was a great, great day, you know, and coming out of the station, you can imagine like it's, me and Gary laugh at this story. So we're standing on at White Hart Lake. So don't forget now, we've not been allowed to come out for about half hour or an hour. I don't know how long it was. Didn't matter. We'd have stayed in there all night.
Yeah,
you know. So we're now on White Hart Lane Station, and there was about 5 or 6 Spurs fans next to us, and I'll never forget it. One of them said, "Man, if I see one of them Arsenal, I'd love to kick his head in like, you know what I mean?" And I didn't laugh. I just, you know, kept me like, got on the car, and you know, but inside, you know. Got back to Cheshunt State. You know, I never went to bed that night. I can't remember sleeping.
Adrenaline, mate. Adrenaline.
Adrenaline was unbelievable, and to beat them and unbelievably, as we were saying, we was never winning that game until that moment. Incredible,
end, right?
Incredible.
And you know that I think that trilogy, Lee, it is. I know. Look, Arsenal have had a lot of success since then, but I think that trilogy is what actually made George Graham.
Yeah,
because that never say die attitude. The young players were in there. You know, they were down and they were down but never out, and they fought and fought and fought and fought their way back, and then won it at the end. And then we're going to move on to '87 final.
The final
against Liverpool. Did you go, and what was your experience? I don't know if you went.
I went like unbelievably. I played in a cup final in the morning, and we bloody lost. You know what I mean? So we lost 2-1, and we missed a penalty in the last minute. I didn't, but one of my mates did. Yeah. Tottenham fan, by the way, missed a penalty, like, you know, and we ended up losing 2-1. So from there, I've had to dash, and I was not in the mood. You know, you just think like, you know, my dad didn't go, so so I weren't in the mood. I couldn't go up with me mates because they'd already gone up there, like, you know, so, you know what I mean?
On your own steam type thing, yeah.
Yeah, I'm on my own steam. Liverpool, you know, this great side, you know, and I remember getting in there, and I just got in there in time, and, you know, playing the game of Ian Rush scores, isn't he? And I thought, what a day this is going to be like, you know what I mean? Lost a cup final. Ian Rush has scored. He doesn't. They
don't lose. They don't lose.
They don't lose. They don't lose. And if you look back at that first 20-25 minutes, they was all over us. Yeah. It was all over us. You know what I mean? You think, oh God, like, you know what I mean? This is going to, you know what I'm like. Oh, that's what a stay this is turning out to be like. You know what I mean? Shouldn't have come, like, you know what I mean? Blah blah blah. And then if you remember it, ball cut. Charlie should have scored, and he hits the post. You know what I mean? And it creates. Oh, that's it. Typical. I'm doing me that again. Like, I didn't actually see the ball go in because where I was moaning so much, it come back in, didn't it? And he put it in. Like, so I didn't know he'd scored. And then,
but you celebrated though.
We celebrated, and someone said it's Charlie. I said, I knew he was Charlie. Giving it, yes, I know it's Charlie.
I love that.
Yeah, I love it. Like, you know what I mean? And of course, you know, that game then, I felt that Arsenal again done really, really well, played really well, and in the second half, I thought we really, really like turned it around. And again, George Graham, and this is a masterstroke as far as I'm concerned, brought on Perry Groves and his pace.
Yeah,
and you know, I think I can't remember, he skinned Gillespie or someone down the left hand side, and you know. A lot of players, Kev, you know what I mean, with £50,000 from Colchester would have just smashed it across the you know, the box, but no, he picked out Charlie, who stabbed it home with a little lucky deflection. But when that went in, you just knew. You just knew that we was going to win.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't worry about, you know, other times you've worried about the next team. It was written. I can't explain it. Charlie Nicholas scoring 2 goals. What had happened against Spurs? Ian Rush, you know, and all. It was written. I can't explain it. I knew we was going to win. I knew we was going to win. You know, and that was a great final. And again, which topped it all off, Kev, was that Spurs got to the final against Coventry a month later, and they 1-0 up. and they're singing, "This is the proper cup, Arsenal." Like, you know what I mean? This is the proper cup. I'll never forget it. I never forget it. And I just, oh God, I hate them. Like, you know what I mean? And they ended up losing it. And the gift that keeps on giving, Tottenham Hotspur, and it was we won it. They lost in the final. That was their first ever defeat in the final, and it tops off a great season. And I think it was a season which you're dead right when it's about George Graham. Not only did it make George Graham, this was the thing now that turned Arsenal to go on to what they've done in 89 and 90, in my opinion. In my opinion, it gave us the belief, it gave us the chance to win. You know, and all of a sudden, these young guys were winners.
Yeah.
And that took us to the next level, that performance and that season, because I think we come fourth, if I'm right, that season. We faded towards the end, but there was something, you know, you couldn't wait to the next season, and which turned out, funny enough, to be a bit of a disappointment in my position, for me all round, because not only did we lose Charlie Nicholas, so that was a big blow for me, but we then didn't really perform, and obviously lost in the Littlewoods Cup final to Luton, you know, and that was an absolute shocker. But and then, you know. But George Graham had sent them, you know, a mentality. These first couple of seasons, Kev, you know, cup final title. You know,
first 3 seasons, that's unbelievable. But Lee, I think as well, what happened was it was the squad learning and adapting to not only his methods, but to being successful. Because when you're successful, let me tell you, you got a target on your back. When you are winners, you get a target on your back, and the perennial winners. Well, that lot at Anfield, you know it, I know it. So there's always stages and steps for the team to take. And under George Graham, we were taking them so fast, the team was taking them so quickly that second season, probably it was the best thing to ever happen to feel a bit of pain, because realistically,
brilliant point.
You know what I mean? During the first season, not a lot went wrong. Most of it went our way and went right.
Yeah.
So the second season, to get to a final, to lose it, to Luton, where you're expected to win, to not have such a good season in the league, you know, as everybody would have hoped, I think that done everybody the world of good, and it steeled everybody's mind mentally. And then the next season was 88, 89.
Yeah.
And the rest is history.
The rest is history, and yeah, I think you're dead right. That when we went to that game against Luton, how different it was. I didn't think we'd beat Liverpool, because, you know, this was this great side, but the expectation was to beat Luton. We didn't, so there was a mixed thoughts going into that season. I think, you know, 16-1 to win the league that season, you know, which is unbelievable. But what George Graham done, and it's very, very similar to what we are now, Kev. You know what I mean? Like, first of all, we wasn't the best. We wasn't the kings of London.
Yeah.
Let alone going above and challenging all that. Like, he put that to right. He put that to right from that moment on. From the minute David Rocastle scored that goal, Arsenal then took over from Tottenham tenfold. There was no, you know, they were gone. We'd gone over them. We'd got past them, and then it was Liverpool. Very, very similar now, because we're, you know, Tottenham, you can argue, are a better team than Arsenal. You can definitely over the last
few years they have been. That's
definitely.
Yeah, it pains me to say it, Lee. Are you there?
Yeah, I'm there. Yeah.
It pains me to say it, but it's true. They have been a better side than us.
Yeah, and we're bridging that gap again, which George Graham did, but. What I liked about George Graham, it wasn't, I'm not going to just settle for Spurs and be the best team. I want to be the best in England. I'm going to chase them down, and to his credit and everything that he did, you know. And I thought those 2-3 years, Arsenal don't get the credit they deserve, because, you know, boring Arsenal, like, all right, we all love the 1-0 things and everything like that, but, you know, we won the league at Anfield on the highest goals scored, and in 91 we was banging. You know, we destroyed teams in 91.
Absolutely destroyed.
You know what I mean? So
look, I'll add this little question in right at the end, just for us, Lee. I don't think George Graham gets enough credit and respect for what he achieved at Arsenal, because we've just been talking from the first question, from 70s to 86, where we won an FA Cup. We got to 3 FA Cups early in the late 70s, to the 80s. We've done nothing really for 6 years. We were a club wallowing, weren't we? There were slow hand claps and all sorts going on.
11,000 fans turning up for games, Kev. You know, believe it or not, 11,000.
Right, it was painful, Lee. It was painful. But as soon as he took it from, I think I've mentioned this to you before, from the first day he came in and he had the conversation with us about what are the plans, it wasn't being the best team in London. It was that team in Liverpool, they are the team we have to get. We have to better them. We're at Arsenal Football Club. We're going to beat them. We're going to put the strategy in place. We're going to do this, but we're going to have to work hard and do that. And if there's anybody here, he said, who doesn't want to work hard and follow, let me know. And you'll be shown the door. Because I only need people who are going in the same direction. And that's what it was, mate. He was... So what do you think he never got that credit?
I do believe that he's not talked about in the same sort of table, if you like, as Arsene Wenger and all that. But you have to see it from when, as good as that, when you go back to when I started following Arsenal, we had some facts. Liam Brady was probably the best midfield player in the country.
Yep.
I've got the best. We had Frank Stapleton, potentially was going to be one of the best. We had some very, very good players, but till George Graham come in there, we never looked like winning a league. Never ever thought we was going to win the league. And all of a sudden, this man come in and, all of a sudden believed that we could win the league. Now, if it wasn't for him, I don't think that Arsene Wenger would have gone on to do what he'd done, because it was set up that we were to win titles and trophies. And as you say, he brought that in. He'd done a fantastic. Yes, as we said, he was lucky that he had a few very, very good youngsters coming through. But when he has those youngsters coming through, he's still got to play them, Kev. You know what I mean? Like, it's still his reputation when he puts you into the side instead of going and buy. Because don't forget, as a fan, we're demanding a big signing, centre forward or a big. Yeah. You know what I mean? So all of a sudden he's. Oh no, I'm going to put in Perry Groves. I'm going to bring in these guys, Bold and Dixon. I'm going to bring the likes of Kevin Campbell, Paul Merson through, and guys like Mickey Thomas and David Rocastle, and build this team around them. Noel Quinn, all of these. He done that, and he brought in what you have to say, those fantastic little key players, Brian Marwood, Kevin Richardson, and he's done that all the way through. Anders Limpar. Mm-hmm. Who had heard of him?
Great signing. Who was Anders? I mean, wow.
Unbelievable. But he'd done it for a couple of years. Now, of course, he's made his bad signings, like every manager. Alex Ferguson has not got it all right, and certainly Arsene Wenger hasn't. Yeah. But he'd done this with these players, and got these players, got them to a position where I felt in 91, I'm disappointed in, because I felt we should have won the league in 92. That's another story. But we had this team then that when you went to Highbury, when you went to games, I was expecting us at the beginning of the season to win the league. Now, before George Graham come in, that was never happening, Kev, you know what I mean? Yeah. And, who was the last manager to win us a European trophy? George Graham. Why? Because he tactically knows what he's doing. You know what I mean? And from that point of view, I think that towards the end, little tarnished it a little bit. Then going to Spurs, tarnished it a little bit. But time's a healer, Kev. You know what I mean? Now, we're sitting here now and we're just talking about all the great times of George Graham, and, as far as I'm concerned, listen, we've had some wonderful teams under Arsene Wenger, wonderful football, wonderful players. He has given me the best 2 days of my footballing supporting life at Arsenal, 87 and 89. And that for those reasons, 2 titles, I do believe he should get more than what he does, And in Arsenal, not only that, Kev, not only that, he also won trophies playing for the club. And I think that gets forgotten as well. He's not just, there's not many managers who can say they've won a league as a player and then won it as a manager with their club. You know what I mean? I know that some have. Kenny Dalglish's coming up, and there are others, of course. But, you know, this is a man that I think that I don't know why he doesn't get the credit he deserves, really. I don't know. Maybe because, I don't know, because he's was a bit disciplinarian. I don't really know, Kev.
I've got a theory on it, Lee. I've got a theory on it. I think George Graham's tenure at Arsenal, remember, his tenure was mostly Division 1 with a little smidge of Premier League.
Yeah.
And it was too early in the Sky Premier League era for it to mean anything now. Because there's new generations that have come in, and Arsene Wenger was the manager. Do you understand what I mean? Bruce Rioch he's forgotten anyway. But it was Arsene Wenger. It's like nothing ever happened before Arsene Wenger. But really, it was George Graham who set that foundation. He set the winning mentality of the football club again. And
yeah, do you know what? Dead right. Because he won those titles, and then they sort of changed the trophy.
Yeah, the trophy changed.
The trophy went to the Championship.
Went to Championship, and the Premier League was the new Premier League. It was obviously all for Sky and all that kind of thing, you know. And obviously George Graham, and then he got obviously done for, you know, the misdemeanor and stuff like that. So it happened. But as far as I'm concerned, and I know Alan Smudge has done a piece on it and all that kind of thing. What George Graham achieved from really nothing, and the foundation he laid at a club like Arsenal, second to none. Absolutely second to none, mate.
Yeah, I've got to agree with that. And, you know, and he's done it with different coaches, of course, Theo Foley and then Stuart Houston. He is like, you know, Pat Rice was about, of course, at that time and all that. Like, you know,
Geordie Armstrong.
Geordie Armstrong. He kept all that little Arsenal connection there as well.
The know-how.
So very, very clever man, Ken. Very clever man. Very clever what he done. Did he overachieve? I think he did to a certain degree. You know, this is a man that's coming from Millwall. Not a great deal of money chucked at him. You know what I mean? If you'd be honest, he wasn't given like, right, this is, you've got the money of what, checkbook.
You know. No open checkbook.
Like, I would say that, you know, there were lots of other teams spending a lot more money than what he was at the time. But, you know, he nurtured the young players. And, you know, listen, I know that like Michael Thomas has come out this week and said that he'd fallen out with George Graham. You know what I mean? Lots of players did, Kev. But what he done was, if he fell out of it, which is, you know, it didn't bother him. You know what I mean? All right, I'll go and get somebody else. And to his credit, he did. You know, and I think the last season, he just, and I do believe this, not sticking up for him and all that, because of what was going on in the background, I think he just lost his way a little bit. I don't know if his eye went off the ball a little bit. I think maybe he knew that his future was not going to be there. I don't know. You probably know a little bit more than me on that. But I just think that he just lost his way a little bit in the last season. But it happens to everybody, doesn't it?
Yeah, Lee, I think you're right. And I think the way he lost it was, I think he had too much power. He was thinking of power too much. Look what I've achieved. I've done this. I've done that. When really it should have been, how do I improve it and how do I move it forward? That's what he should have been thinking about. Do you know what I mean? Because we had the squad, we had the players, but he needed to bring in 2 or 3 top players to add to it, and he never did.
No,
he never did. He always was trying to, you know, I could get bargains. And kind of Arsene Wenger done that. He got bargains to start, didn't he? And the bargains paid off and it was all great. And then when you look down the line, the ones that he thought were the bargains now are the ones, why did we get Scalacci? Why did we get this one? Why did we get that one?
Yeah.
Because they weren't
working. They weren't working, you know.
Yeah.
I also think that he lost a lot of the youngsters were going in. Obviously, David Rocastle had left. Mickey Thomas had left by then as well. Like, you know what I mean? So, you know, and which is fine. Okay, let these guys go. but then you've got to replace them with other players.
Yeah, with quality. You have to.
And we still had that to a certain degree with yourself and Ian up front and Merce. We still had the firepower, but I felt that the midfield wasn't as strong. You know what I mean? Like, you know, with experience or whatever. And I think that's where he let himself down. He kept the defence going, you know, as it did. But that's where I think then Arsene Wenger come along, that he tinkered with it a little bit when he brought in Patrick Vieira. I know that's a thing, but just one or two players, Kev, and he could have gone again, you know. But, you know, let's not take away, because of one bad season, take away the fantastic things that he done.
And the things he put in place.
He put in that back four that, you know, even watching the 89 thing, you know, Steve, I'll give you a little compliment there. You know, Steve Bowl said every day I was up against Kev Campbell because he was, you know, which was making you a better player and
making Baldy a better player, making him understand what he needed to do.
Yeah, and
you know, Lee, that was really important for George Graham, because normally if he's going to go up against anyone else in training, you know, players could go through the motions.
Yeah,
there was no going through the motions for me. I wanted to make that first team. Let me tell you, I was desperate.
Exactly, and that's what he knew. So he said, "Right, I'm you know, you're not going to pull out." So he was going to have an easier, a harder game, say perhaps against you, than say Paul Merson, who didn't want to get injured or whatever. Yeah. Very, very clever, very clever. And you know, Steve Bowl really said in that before, that toughened me up, made me, you know. So even in training, things were contributing onto the pitch, you know. So very, very clever man, very clever. Yeah. Deserves a lot more credit. I do agree than what he actually gets, you know. And you know, winning a trophy at Tottenham doesn't help, if I'll be honest. But you know,
listen, he's got to work. He had to work. And
yes, yeah.
And look, they had to swallow a massive pill to take George Graham. And look, he even won him a pot.
Yeah, he won him a pot.
Do you know what I mean? He won him a pot. So listen, we take that on the chin. He's still our guy. He done more with our club than he done at their place.
He's an Arsenal man, isn't he? Like,
he's an Arsenal man through and through. Lee, we've come to the end of that. Listen, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you on part 2, mate. Who are you? And I look forward to catching you again on part 3, my man.
Oh, brilliant! Like, loved it. Like, you know, how quick's that gone? Talking of, it's great, isn't it? Reminiscing and all that. Like, you know, that is what it's about being a fan. You got your memories. Definitely. You know, you can't take away your memories, whether you've been to the games or not. Great memories, and that's what it's all about, you know, and that's why we love the game so much.
Very much so, Lee. Lee, you take care of yourself, mate.
And yes, cheers, Kev.
See you for part 3.
Part 3. Look forward to it, like, yeah.
Take care, mate.